I don't know what it was for, but what we used it for was a trip to Paris. We were sitting on the Seine by the money that Sears gave to us. Thanks, Jeff and Roland. Told me about that song just before I came in, and luckily I had 25 more poems, or probably 100 more poems that I'm going to be able to read. So I had to find one quickly. It's one by an author who's one of my favorite American writers, Langston Hughes. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. As I read various poems, we're looking at a number of people who've given form and artistry to their essential person, their experience, their emotions, or thoughts. And our task is just to listen. And as we listen, I'm going to be dealing just with lyric poetry. So we'll be interested in, as you hear the poems, hear the speaker. Listen to the action that is involved in the poem, and finally feel the emotion, as you did with the piano. I'm not a metaphor or symbol. This you hear is not the wind in the trees, nor a cat being maimed in the street. I am being maimed in the street. It is I who weep, laugh, feel pain or joy. Speak this because I exist. This is my voice. These words are my words. My mouth speaks them, my hand writes. I am a poet. It is my fist you hear beating against your ear. That's Kelvin Herndon. Another poet. If this world could stop for a moment and see me, if I could step out into the street and become one of them, one of anything, I would sing, no weep right here, to simply be and be and be. Another poem, Nikki Giovanni. Childhood remembrances are always a drag if you're Black. You always remember things like living in Woodlawn with no inside toilet, and if you become famous or something, they never talk about how happy you were to have your mother all to yourself, and how good the water felt when you got your bath from one of those big tubs that folk in Chicago barbecue in. And somehow, when you talk about home, it never gets across how much you understood their feelings as the whole family attended meetings about Hollydale. And even though you remember, Hollydale was a Black housing development near Cincinnati, and people bought shares in the housing development. The whole family attended meetings about Hollydale, and even though you remember, your biographers never understand your father's pain as he sells his stock and another dream goes. And though you're poor, it isn't poverty that concerns you. And though they fought a lot, it isn't your father's drinking that makes any difference, but only that everybody is together, and you and your sister have happy birthdays and very good Christmases. And I really hope no white person ever has cause to write about me, because they never understand Black love is Black wealth, and they'll probably talk about my hard childhood and never understand that all the while I was quite happy. When we look at that poem, I got these mixed up a little bit when I went out of order. This is Natasha Trethewey, a poem called Southern History. She's the current poet laureate in the United States. It's the second time that she's been poet laureate. A young woman who's been in Philadelphia. Before the war, they were happy, he said, quoting our textbook. This was senior year history class. The slaves were clothed, fed, and better off under a master's care. I watched the blur on the page. No one raised a hand, disagreed, not even me. It was late. We still had Reconstruction to cover before the test, and luckily, 3 hours of watching Gone with the Wind. History, the teacher said, of the Old South is a true account of how things were back then in that movie. On screen, a slave stood big as life, big mouth, buck-eyed, our textbook's grinning proof, a lie my teacher guarded. Grinning proof, a lie my teacher guarded. Silently, so did I. Natasha Trethewey is much younger than probably most all of us in this audience. This was in her senior year in high school. Different way of seeing that laughter and good time. Another one by Langston Hughes. It's called Theme for English B. The instructor said, go home and write a page tonight and let that page come out of you. Then it will be true. I wonder if it's that simple. I'm 22, colored, born in Winston-Salem. I went to school there. Then Durham, then here to this college on the hill above Harlem. I am the only colored student in my class. The steps from the hill lead down into Harlem, through a park, then I cross to St. Nicholas, 8th Avenue, 7th, and I come to the Y, the Harlem Branch Y, where I take the elevator up to my room, sit down, and write this page. It's not easy to know what's true for you or me at 22, my age. But I guess I'm what I feel and see and hear. Harlem, I hear you. Hear you. Hear me. We too. You, me, talk on this page. I hear New York too. Me? Who? Well, I like to eat, sleep, drink, and be in love. I like to work, read, learn, and understand life. I like a pipe for a Christmas present, or records, Bessie, Bop, or Bop. I guess being colored doesn't make me not like the same things other folks like who are other races. Mary Baraka, who many of you know, is a poem to a young person called Young Soul. First feel, then feel. Then read or read. Then feel. Then fall or stand where you already are. Think of yourself and the other selves. Think of your parents, your mothers and sisters, your bent-slick father. Then feel or fall on your knees if nothing else will move you. Then read and look deeply into all matters come close to you. City boys, countrymen, make some muscle in your head, but use the muscle in your heart. Sometimes poets take on topics that people don't always like to talk about. Gwendolyn Brooks. Abortions will not let you forget. You remember the children you got that you did not get. The damp, small pulps with a little or no hair. The singers and workers that never handled the air. You will never neglect or beat them, or silence or buy with a sweet. You will never wind up the sucking thumb or scuttle off ghosts that come. You will never leave them controlling your luscious sigh, return for a snack for them with a gobbling mother eye. I have heard in the voices of the wind the voices of my dim, killed children. I have contracted. I have eased my dim tears at the breasts they could never suck. I have said, sweets, if I sinned, if I seized your luck and your lives from your unfinished reach, if I stole your births and your names, your straight baby tears and your games, your stilted or lovely loves, your tumults, your marriages, aches, and your deaths, if I poisoned the beginnings of your breast, believe that even in my deliberateness, I was not deliberate. Though why should I whine that the crime was other than mine, since anyhow you are dead, or rather instead, you were never made. But that too, I am afraid, is faulty. Oh, what shall I say? How is the truth to be said? You were born, you had a body, you died. It's just that you never giggled, or planned, or cried. Believe me, I loved you all. That poem shocked, continues to shock, and it gave voice to a lot of people, and it's something that whatever kinds of controversies go on, all we can do is feel for the loved person, is articulating the courage it took to say that. Alongside of it, a poem by a man named Michael Harper. He says, twitching in a cactus hospital gown, a loon on hairpin wings, she tells me how her episiotomy is perfectly sewn and doesn't hurt, while she sits in a pile of blood, which once cleaned the placenta my third son should be in. She tells me how early he is and how strong like his father and long like a black-stemmed Easter rose in a white hand. Just under 5 pounds, you lie there, a collapsed balloon doll burst in your 15th hour with the face of your black father, his fingers, his toes, and 8 voodoo adrenaline holes in your pinwheeled hairline chest. You witness your parents sign the autopsy and disposal papers shrunk into duplicate and black ink on white paper, like the country you were born in, unreal, asleep, silent, almost alive. This is a dedication to our memory of 3 sons, 2 dead, 1 alive, a reminder of a letter to Debois from a student at Cornell on behalf of his whole history class. The class is confronted with a question, and no one, not even the professor, can answer. The question they ask to WEB Debois, will you please tell us whether or not it is true that Negroes are not able to cry? America needs a killing. America needs a killing. Survivors will be human, he says. Another one. Once riding in old Baltimore, heart-filled, head-filled with glee, I saw the Baltimorean keep looking straight at me. Now, I was 8 and very small, and he was no whit bigger, and so I smiled. But he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until December. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. This is an adult looking back on when he was 8. And that experience when he was 8, since he's as an adult, he's heard. And you've all heard it. We all heard it from the time we were little. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That may be true, but it certainly is not true to County Cullen. It's the one thing about Baltimore he remembers. Well, young poet from who just finished her PhD at Johns Hopkins in biomedical engineering. Grandma, get your gun. The wolves are in the yard. They have come for the children. You ain't really got to shoot at nobody. Just aim for the moon. Grace Alpha Centaurus shoulder. Let stardust rain down. Knock the devil on his ass. Make him think twice about coming home here to quick, so slick. No more. Grandma, get your gun. Shove it down throats. Make them eat their words. Make them stop eating us for breakfast. Sometimes we hear about anger like that, but sometimes it comes pretty close to home. I'm quoting from a letter, May 6, 1970, in Ethical Views of the Philadelphia Ethical Society. The following is my response to recent letters in Ethical Views regarding the Black Panthers. In the interest of solidarity, my initial impulse was to ignore the recent letters. My conscience, however, refuses to allow me to keep quiet any longer. I prefer to try to provoke some honest debate, since some of the statements in those letters ignore facts, and the reactions are way out of proportion to any present or future danger found in the Panther philosophy or programs. It is my opinion that much of the current hysteria over this issue is conscious or subconscious anti-Black attitudes disguised as anti-Panther or anti-violent views inside this room. For example, one could go into any white middle-class home and find the amount of ammunition and weapons uncovered in raids of Panther homes and headquarters. Who else could be supporting the enormous weapons industry in this country? It's my personal view that the Panthers have struck at the root of the American racial problem, the white male ego. The deep gut feeling of most white males is that black men should never assert themselves aggressively, even to defend their families and their lives. This is an invasion of the white man's citadel of masculinity, and the black man is tolerated only as long as he accepts the emasculation imposed on him. The gun is America's eloquent phallic symbol, and this is why, even during the years of the silent raids, the black man had limited access to weapons. World War II black GIs did guard duty with no ammunition in their guns. Few of them were permitted combat duty in hardware stores in black neighborhoods sold ammunition only to whites. The sudden growth of rifle clubs, target practice, and karate classes are all in white neighborhoods. Big city police are more diligent in their pursuit of peaceful black dissenters than of gang members and muggers. And then she quotes a poem, which I'll read in a minute. That was Bertha. 44 years ago. I think she stands by these words today. And now she has children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren who all have her back. Even when you talk quietly, Bertha, we need to listen. The poem that she quoted at that time, see, I have it here, is by Claude McKay. If we must die, let it not be like hogs hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain, that even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe, though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. And Tozaki Shamge writes, Lady in Blue, one thing I don't need is any more apologies. I got sorry greeting me at my front door. You can keep yours. I don't know what to do with them. They don't open doors or bring the sun back. They don't make me happy or get a morning paper. Then nobody stopped using my tears to wash cars because of sorry. I let sorry, didn't mean to, how could I know about that, take a walk down a dark and musty street in Brooklyn. I'm gonna do exactly what I want to, and I won't be sorry for none of it. Let sorry soothe your soul. I'm gonna soothe mine. And then talk to yourself, or whatever kinds of things you want to, I said, you get a lot of people telling you I'm sorry. Sometimes sorry about an addiction. Sorry, it's a good one. Let's see. What about history? Fitting into something of our interest in the non-human world last week. This is by Melvin Tolson, the poet who has a poem called Dark Symphony. It's his title that I stole. Strange, but true, is the story of the sea turtle and the shark. The instinctive drive of the weak to survive in the oceanic dark. Driven by hunger from abyss to shoal, Sometimes the dark swallows the sea turtle, sometimes the shark swallows the sea turtle whole. The sly reptilian marine withdraws into the shell of his undersea craft, his leathery head and the rapacious claws that can rip a rhinoceros hide or strip a crocodile to the fare-thee well. Now, inside the shark, the sea turtle begins the churning seesaws of descent into pelagic hell. Then with ravenous jaws that can cut steel, the sea turtle gnaws and gnaws and gnaws his way in a way that appalls, his way of freedom beyond the vomiting dark, beyond the stomach walls of the shark. One of the poems again often read. What happens? What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? Toni Morrison, in her book of Mercy, writes about the late 17th century and the establishment of a set of new laws which the blacks of her book saw as authorizing chaos in defense of order. Toni Morrison sets this at the time of the Enlightenment, a time that we hold up in the ethical society as where we hold our basis. These laws, Morrison says, eliminated manumission, gatherings, travel, and bearing arms for black people, and granted license to any white to kill any black for any reason. This was the close of the 17th century, 1690s. Their goal, Morrison says, was to protect all whites from all others. To protect all whites from all others. In a separate essay, Morrison sees a conscious movement during the period we call the Enlightenment to construct a definition and an identity of the American as the new white man, a new man in a new country. In her most recent poem, book, I think, Natasha Trethewey also writes about the Enlightenment. And one of our heroes, Thomas Jefferson, in a little different way. In the portrait of Jefferson that hangs at Monticello, he is rendered two-toned, his forehead white with illumination, a lit bulb, the rest of his face in shadow, darkened as if the artist meant to contrast his bright knowledge and its dark subtexts. The first time I saw the painting, I listened as my father explained the contradictions. How Jefferson hated slavery, though out of necessity, my father said, had to own slaves. That his moral philosophy meant he could not have fathered those children. Would have been impossible, my father said. For years we debated the distance between word and deed. I followed my father from book to book, gathering citations, listen as he named, like a field guide to Virginia, each flower and tree and bird, as if to prove a man's pursuit of knowledge is greater than his shortcomings, the limits of his vision. I did not know then the subtext of our story, that my father could imagine Jefferson's words made flesh in my flesh. Her father was white. The improvement of the blacks in body and mind in the first instance of their mixture with the whites, or that my father could believe he'd made me better. When I think of this now, I see how the past holds us captive. Its beautiful ruin etched on the mind's eye. My young father, a rough outline of the old man he's become, needing to show me the better measure of his heart, an equation writ large at Monticello, that was years ago. Now we take in how much has changed. Talk of Sally Hemings, someone asking, how white was she? Parsing the fractions as if to name what made her worthy of Jefferson's attention. A near-white quadroon mistress, not a plain black slave. Imagine stepping into the past, our guide tells us then, and I can't resist whispering to my father. This is where we split up. I'll head around to the back. When he laughs, I know he's grateful I made a joke of it. This history that links us, white father, black daughter, even as it renders us other to each other. It's the daughter to her father, and it's the daughter who releases the tension from a man who has done this. She lets the white one off the hook. As you listen to the music, you saw two performers. Rita Dove has a poem about a violin player. It's called The Performer. He steps out on stage. I step out into silence. I step out to take my place. My place is silence before I lift the bow and draw a finger width of ache upon the air. This is what it is like to be a flame, a furious, but without weight, breeze sharpening into wind, a bright gust that will blind, flatten all of you, yet tender, somewhere inside tender. If you could see me now, Father, you would cry, though you wept easily as I remember, and even so, it was manly, the way that thick black fist daubed your cheek with those extravagant sleeves quivering. I prefer to stand, cheek cushioned, and soothe her as I pull the sobs out gently. Yes, you hear it. You who made me can hear it, just as he's making me hear it now, so that I can pull it from her. Violinist playing Beethoven in the manner of hearing Deep River just a little while ago. Rita Dove, in her last book, it's called Sonata Melodica. It's a whole book of poetry relative to a young black violinist who was tutored by Haydn, later played for Beethoven. And this is a poem of hers about this performer on stage. Is that nonetheless he ignores his heart thudding and steps out onto the flickering stage, deep and treacherous as a lake still frozen at sunset, aglow with reflected light. Soon, the music will take him across. He'll feel each string's ecstasy thrum in his head, and only then dare to open his eyes to gaze past the footlights at the rows of powdered curls. Let's see the toy bear jump through the hoops. Nodding, lorgnettes posed, not hearing, but judging. Windsor, and on, as they try to understand, or they just try to listen to my poem. Got a page stuck here. Nodding, lorgnettes posed, not hearing, but judging, except for that tall man on the aisle, with hair the orange of fading leaves, and the two girls beside him. One, a younger composition of snow and embers, but the other, dark yet warm as the violin's nut-brown sheen, miraculous creature who fastens her solemn black gaze on the boy. This is the black violinist playing, as if to say, you are what I am, what I yearn to be, so that he plays only for her and not her keepers. And when he is finally free to stare back, applause rippling over the ramparts, even then she does not smile. Rita Dove said this is a poem she was determined to write. She said, because I wanted to make Thomas Jefferson into a footnote. He was that red-headed man in the audience. She needed this poem because she says, we have been footnoted for the longest time. Bridge Tower has been footnoted. That's the name of the violinist from the 18th century that she's talking about. I thought Jefferson deserves to make a minor appearance without mentioning his name and then to disappear, and I felt good. Well, I'll try a little different technique. This is another one of my favorite poets, Gene Toomer. And we've had lots of electrical problems in this winter, storms and so forth. He's writing here about her lips are like copper wire. You ought to be able to get into this one. Whisper of yellow globes gleaming on lampposts that sway like bootleg liquor drinkers in the fog, and let your breath be moist against me, like bright beads on yellow globes. Telephone the powerhouse that the main wires are insulate. Her words play softly up and down dewy corridors of billboards. Then with your tongue, remove the tape and press your lips to mine till they are incandescent. That's the kiss. A number of other poems fit that pattern. This is one of the poems that will be in our daughter's wedding. Let the wobbly spin of the earth be a delight wherein a caress forms the most perfect circle. Let the wobbly spin of the earth be a delight wherein a caress forms the most perfect circle. That's by L. Young. Another one that'll be in her service. is Everett Hoagland's poem, This I Know. This I know, you are beautiful. You are beautiful beyond reference. You are you. And when I use, whenever I get in trouble, by Jean Toomer, it says, I met a woman, much that I am, I owe to her. For she was going where I was going, we together. And a buried being was called to life, a beauty and a power, a revelation of what life is for and why we are. Because I teach at Ollie, where a number of people are just about as old as I am, they go back at the beginnings of certain kinds of periods of history. And this is a 1918 poem. The heart of a woman goes forth with the dawn as a lone bird, soft winging, so restlessly on. Afar, o'er life's turrets and vales does it roam. In the wake of those echoes, the heart calls home. The heart of a woman falls back with the night and enters some alien cage in its plight and tries to forget it has dreamed of the stars while it breaks under shelter of bars. The state of women in 1918 brought about a number of attempts at women's liberation throughout these years since then. At any rate, and I work with the poems, and sometimes a poem exists only by means of a title, and one that I have to keep reminding myself of. The rest of you aren't old enough to be there yet. But it's a statement of his poem says, hunting is not those heads on the walls.